higher pedagogy just did not work with me, did not necessarily align with my own values, align with my ways of looking at the world, my perspectives. And I spent a lot of time in college settings arguing for a seat at the table more than space to explore ideas, which was not necessarily too fruitful for me. But yeah, let's jump into the presentation and I can share a little bit more. So here's some fun little graphics I made for y'all.
Wait, can you show that again?
Sure. Would have been a good image to open up on.
Thank you, so cool.
Mm-hmm. We have some folks in the waiting room also. I'm just gonna admit them. Mm-hmm. Great. Yeah, so my practice notably, I think, starts around 2017. Around this time, I was in the midst of an undergrad design education. I spent 2 years at a like smaller trade tech school, learning graphic design and earning my associate's degree in it. That school and its program were a bad time. And if anything, I think I learned what values that don't align in how I'd like to practice this. And yeah, it was a very clarifying time. And after that time, I transferred to UArts in Center City, Philly. And this was around 2017. I was coming in as a second-year sophomore, design major that was also just kind of getting jaded and a little bogged down by sort of the characteristics of the curriculum and like the shape that it made and how I didn't necessarily fit into that shape, and how I noticed a lot of other folks who that shape is not catering to didn't fit into it. So yeah, that was heavily on my mind. And after a certain bit of time, I withdrawed from design as my major, and I gravitated towards painting. But I think everything I've learned in my design practice has really been rather crucial to a lot of my thinking in a more visual art landscape. And so I think this work is a really good sort of introduction to show a lot of me thinking through a lot of different design systems and also just image making and signs and symbols. This video is called Anti-Oppression Ritual 01, and I'll let it play. And so that was the first video. It's a really brief series of 5 videos. And yeah, I made these initially not thinking, not prescribing that I am going to make something for my art making practice or to get this off the ground, but more so it was playful communication, and I was kind of thinking and reacting through the larger world, through a Trump election, through the rise of like American nationalism and fascism. And this was some of the sentiments that were starting to come out, almost like jaded yet humorous, really short duration sort of videos that are built up of sort of found object assemblages that I create on the ground. Yeah, I think this first one's exciting with the sort of cut tape motif on the floor with the frowny faces. And the tiled subject in the center was, I think, somebody from like a Facebook argument that I was in or something. But that was a really interesting way to sort of process a larger cultural moment and sentiments that in the moment were maybe confusing and a little bit all over the place. And this was sort of, again, a sort of wayfinding device. Yeah, during this time I was also painting, and I'll share a little bit of that. I also think this is jumping to maybe 2019 to my senior year, some of my thesis works. I've taken a more of a longer break from painting post-undergrad, and I'm just starting to return to it now. And I think a lot of that was not necessarily not feeling like I've arrived at creative autonomy by default through the faculty's guidance. And yeah, I was feeling like I needed my own sort of cohort that I could talk through things, and a community of people that could meet me where I was at. And I wasn't getting that necessarily too much at UArts at the time, but I was getting that so much through outside community efforts and sort of interventions. I think a large part of my success is, to this date, has been due to you know, a larger cohort of like Black art makers and sort of cultural producers and thinkers and writers and sort of community members in Philadelphia. I think they all showed me models of the sort of methods of Black cultural production and models of fighting or getting at Black liberation or sort of free creative autonomy. And that has been really a formative idea that stuck throughout my practice. Yeah, I especially think that when we kind of compare the cultures of the two sort of worlds, maybe contemporary graphic design and the art world, and how there's a lot of different things at play, and still sort of, yeah, a lot of similar decisions to make around values and what we uphold as we make and as we participate in all of this. And I'll show one more thesis work. This was a painting around losing, it was like a heartbreak painting, but that came through the lens of a dog. Yeah, I like the I like the jaded sort of humorous dichotomy. I see Anna Harding in the chat. Yeah, and I'll show a little bit of video work as well too. I'll give a little context on this. This video is called Granite, parentheses 4C. And you know, they're more sort of more almost like impressionistic videos that are thinking about image and text and the relationship between the two. It's thinking about a sort of musicality that has repeatedly jumped sort of in and out of my practice. But again, like I'm staying in this period, like I'm staying kind of clear away from things that feel like hard declarations in the work, and coming from more of a place of wayfinding and active sort of wonder. So I'll give these a play. Oops, sorry about that. That one was just about over. And then there's this one as well. These are sort of shown as an accompanying diptych together. And so these are thinking of time and rhythm and almost setting up moments of like little isolated image making moments, or almost moments that feel akin to drawing, which is really exciting to me. I think in retrospect, I was really trying to bridge the gap between maybe workflows that feel more digital, more screen-based, more informed by a design practice, and things like drawing and painting and things that are a bit more poetic. So I was sitting in this space for a while. Video work was kind of how I initially kind of got my start in an art making sort of sphere. And so I'll show one more video piece, and this was sort of the last major sort of video performance sort of project I have worked on recently. This is a screenshot from a performance at Icebox Project Space in Philadelphia. It was in collaboration. The performance was called Hotter Than July. I Just Might Burn You in August. It was me and my collaborator, Bitch Bulra, an exciting Philadelphia-based performance artist and dancer. And yeah, the Icebox Project Space is a really interesting, really unique venue to Philadelphia because they have these wall-to-wall projection systems that are really exciting. And yeah, that felt like a really exciting sort of opportunity to kind of do something large with do something larger with like an audio video sort of immersive sort of experience. And again, the unknowingness and the wayfinding kind of came back to this project as well. I think Vich Bulra shares a lot of those, the sentiments I have around like process and intuition and improvisation. I think a lot of my work kind of stems from that space more than over analytic planning or over prescription of the work. So we had a title and we had a loose idea around energy and rhythm and how we would engage folks. And yeah, so the only thing that was necessarily a bit more articulated was the 2-hour long looping video sort of audio productions video moment, and I'll share that now. Here's another screenshot. Yeah, this to be bathed in red in this large Philadelphia warehouse was really exciting. Here's an image of Ra in the performance. And here's a clip of the video. Again, this was a 2-hour sort of immersive experience, and this is about a minute excerpt of it. And so we would have these moments of audio video activations kind of flush on the wall. And that would be kind of juxtaposed by these moments of silence and pause with the video, and then more of like physical sort of improvised activation via our bodies, me and Ra, and also the audience members who were also very much a part of the performance. So yeah, this was a really exciting project in general. Also, this was one of the last sort of larger projects I did during my time in Philly before moving to New York. Also, shout out to Ra. Ra just did a really exciting performance with Caitlin Cherry and More Mother at Pace Gallery not too long ago. I attended that, and it was really exciting to see like an expansion of like thinking that was evident here kind of show up again in a different context. Yeah, really exciting to see. So yeah, I was living in Philly. This was after undergrad now, kind of shortly after I just graduated in 2019. I was living in Philly. I had a studio. I was looking for like work in general, and just wasn't having the easiest time finding something sustainable in Philadelphia. And of course, I got a job offer in New York, and I love Philadelphia as a community and still love it to this day. But like knew I had to kind of take that job at the moment. And so I migrated over to New York to work at Housing Works, which is where I met a colleague who's now just a close friend and also just family, Jerome Harris, who was my design director and former MICA teacher. Me and Jerome have gone on to work on quite a few projects together, and I'll share one of them a little later. And let me know if you have any questions now. I'm going to kind of switch gears to kind of share more design projects. So there's a couple publication projects, some VisID sort of case studies, and then we have some looser and miscellaneous work and like poster design things. And feel free to ask any questions if it makes sense to while I'm chatting, but also at the end as well. So yeah, getting into the New Black Vanguard. Like I said, this was completed through my senior year of undergrad. It's an exciting sort of book and larger proposal, kind of introducing a new class of Black image makers across different sorts of like borders, countries, etc., across Europe, parts of Africa, America, and more. This was a curatorial project by Antoine Sargent. It's since gone on to travel as an exhibition to MICA, to Aperture Gallery in New York, abroad in Paris. And it's really exciting to see how this project has sort of taken shape and really gained an identity, and is now just sort of having a, like I'm seeing the ripples of this conversation start to expand, and that feels really exciting to me. And I'll just show you some of the interior. This is Micaiah Carter, some of his plates. Namsa Luba. And we also made some very limited, like specific artist covers for each artist in the book. Here's 3 of those. And so, yeah, jumping to another book, we have, this is To the Front, Black Women in the Boat. This was published by the Baltimore African American and Afro Charities. And this was really exciting to sort of work with Savannah Wood. She's in charge of the archives at the Afro, and just kind of sitting with all of this archival material spanning over 100 years. material that hasn't been absorbed in the mainstream and talked through in ways it should have. I think we're now just having conversations around like Black women's own contribution to like voting movements throughout history, and also just a larger Black suffragette sort of tradition. And so this book compiles just a lot of archival material, images you can see here from the Afro-American newspaper archives. And these are really exciting for me also as somebody who's obsessed with process and is thinking about, you know, all of these moments of like what newspaper editorial sort of process was like before computers, like having to actually white out or gray out backgrounds, thinking about the production quality when it's going through reproduction and everything and printing. So it's great to see these images in great quality still that really tell a story that has not been given the time or energy that it requires, honestly. And so, yeah, we have archival images, and then we also have archival text, down to these like little newspaper clippings from as early as like 1911. So it's just really interesting to sort of, from even a publication design perspective, to compile a sort of visual argument on these artifacts that have been sort of that have gone uncovered for so long. Yeah. So jumping into visual identity now. This is a fun site. This is the Center for Afrofuturist Studies, a center thinking of Afrofuturist studies that also does programming and sort of residencies at an Iowa city. And everything about the Center for Afrofuturist Studies is really exciting. I worked on the website and the larger visual identity with Rahul S. Shinde, who is a good friend of mine, a colleague as well, and a MICA alum. And yeah, so we designed a site for them. Rahul did the programming and everything, and it's really exciting. It's got a library and a sort of like reading room sort of function to it. And I think the process of how we worked on the visual identity is quite fun and feels really true to a spirit of collaboration that I like to sort of inhabit. And yeah, just to kind of share, this was how the brand identity mark was developed. We were talking through, we would be co-working from time to time in person mostly. And then the mark really came down to a series of iMessages and iteration live over iMessage. This is Rahul texting me and us just sort of starting to live sketch. And then you can start to see things come together. We got really excited about the idea of like a polydirectional asterisk and sort of the linguistic and sort of symbolic things that gets at, especially in relation to the Center for Afrofuturist Studies, thinking about Afrofuturism, atemporality, not thinking through time in a linear fashion. So yeah, that became really exciting. And it's just great to see, like, I think this is a mode of collaboration that's really exciting to see two folks just kind of working and iterating through in a casual way, really playful, tongue out emojis everywhere. This is the spirit of kind of being met where you're at, and I really like that. In my experience, I've gone on to, I started full-time freelancing in August, and now I'm fully independent within my design practice. But I think what kind of drove me to that was also realizing the ways in which agency culture doesn't allow for the play that moments like this can have. The way that a lot of conventional sort of graphic design like modalities can't necessarily get at this playfulness or this, this sort of lacks energy. I think there's a lot of gatekeeping around like how one acts or sort of talks, or, you know, there's invisible sort of tone policing and respectability politics all throughout graphic design, not just in the practice, but in the culture itself. And I've been thinking about that since being introduced to the culture. And also just really coming to terms that that doesn't work for everybody, especially folks that, like me, might be Black, queer, non-binary, neurodivergent, etc. The list goes on. Yeah. Here's a fun project. This was through ICA Philadelphia after I'd moved to New York now. I believe this is when I was working at Housing Works. ICA Philly reached out to me to design some promotional materials for the late Milford Graves, an artist, thinker, musician, healer, someone who's thinking a lot about alternative medicine, how music relates to the body. Yeah, I'll show the video here. And so it was a simple and quick little project, just making masks and a quick animated social graphic for them. But it was really exciting to kind of think through what a visual language for Milford Graves might look like. Something that's almost kind of jazz based, something that is is kind of really vibrant, percussion based. Is thinking about the heartbeat and percussion beats and that sort of overlap. So these were masks that were made for Milford and the exhibition that was up at the ICA last year. Milford passed, I think, right before these were all released. But yeah, it was incredible to sort of spend time with his work, to really sort of digest his work. I recommend his documentary. I believe it's called Milford Graves Full Lotus or something like that, Full Mantis. Yeah, really exciting, just to think about how he sort of considers rhythm as an extension of medicine and was actively healing himself. My last project I'll share today before jumping into questions is a poster design for an exhibition called You Won't Bleed Me at Poster House Museum in New York. The show is all about Blaxploitation posters. And for this project, I was thinking a lot about sort of a quite literal sort of tug of war between like the creative autonomy of the Black filmmakers and the white-owned entities that were either producing these movies or sort of managing them, or so I was thinking a lot about that and how Blaxploitation started as a moment of Black autonomy, and with Melvin Van Peebles, who was the first, who made arguably the first Blaxploitation film, Sweet Sweetback. Melvin actually just passed as well, I believe, while this exhibition was open. But I was thinking a lot about how this movie, I mean, beyond the actual characteristics of Blaxploitation as a genre, this movie as the sort of initial start is really exciting to think through when you think through how it's also self-funded and was sort of self-produced. And I think that I can really relate to that energy. I think that that is something a lot of Black artists and cultural producers can sort of relate to in general, or not sort of having a larger sort of infrastructural support. So that really kind of stood out at me. And I was kind of thinking about that as I was developing this poster. It's currently throughout the subways in New York. If you've I don't know if anybody has spotted it recently. I saw it maybe like last week or so, but I'm not on the train too much. And here's some installation shots of the exhibition. And also, again, going back to kind of wayfinding and community, I think this poster was a great sort of example of, yeah, just a fun sort of community-centric solution. I had my good friend and colleague Riley Hooker be the opposing hand pulling on this piece of paper that was then manipulated for the poster. Yeah, the poster's in subways, and it also exists at the museum as a 5-color screen print, screen printed by K-Rock. So yeah, those are available if you're in the city, if you're in Chelsea. I recommend Poster House. They have some cool shows open right now, including You Won't Bleed Me. And yeah, that's where I can sort of pause for questions. Yeah, looking forward to questions.
So amazing, bravo. I can't believe how great that work is, and it raises so many questions. To our wonderful audience, feel free to just unmute if you have a question and shoot it out to Rush. Or if you feel more comfortable typing it in the chat, feel free to do that.
Mm-hmm. Don't be shy. I left a lot out.
Hey, Rush, I
Hi,
have a
Anna.
question.
What's up?
I was wondering if you could talk about I put it in the chat, but the typeface foundry studio that you worked with for Black Women in the Vote, it has an interesting backstory to it.
Yeah, so this is, let me go back to it. Yeah, so we used a typeface called Carrie, which is made by Vocal Type Company, which is run by Trey Seals, a type designer. And yeah, Carrie is thinking a lot about a specific history of maybe a white suffragist sort of tradition, even down to this little flare on the L here. Yeah, definitely check out Trey Seals' work. He has some really exciting typefaces, like display faces that are really tied to history. Things like Marsha, which is really thinking about the letter forms kind of informed by like the Stonewall sign, or there's Martin. Yeah, things like that. Very, very cool foundry in general. It's very cool to see type foundries thinking through context and sort of culture a bit more. Yeah, I think the type industry largely needs that, honestly, as well. And also, yeah, just the other typeface is Freight, a serif designed by Joshua Darden, another Black type designer. Thank you for that question.
I have a question while we're waiting for students to come forward with more questions.
Sure.
Rush, you move so fluidly, as your intro aptly states, between so many media and so many kind of visual realities. There's the installation art with moving image and painting, and so graphic design, publication, the video clips and the filmic image. It's so wonderful to see. Can you talk about how that multidisciplinarity came about, and how do you actually maintain it with vis-a-vis the need for sort of career up, like kind of building your career as a young artist and kind of making a living,
Yeah, that's a great question. Thank you. Yeah, I think the multidisciplinary sort of nature came from a couple different things. One, I think it came out of necessity. I think design emerged early on as like a way for me to stop working service jobs while I was in undergrad and to not be on my feet for like 8 hours a day or something. I, yeah. I think also, I think that there's also a sort of facet of, I'm a Libra. I'm very indecisive at the end of the day. I want to do everything. And I'm also looking, I want to do everything. And I don't necessarily, I don't like boxing myself in or, don't like boxing myself in a bit. And so I like the room to play, and I like the room to not define like hard limitations on what I do necessarily. I think a really fruitful thing about combining these practices or working across so many mediums is like the gray areas and how they all inform each other. To a certain extent, I'm not interested in titles or hierarchy on titles besides the use of like it helps me be legible to folks or something like that. But I really love kind of that gray area and like how things slip into each other across mediums, maybe across video context into static design context, into painting, image making, drawing, etc. Even down to like thinking through like how time functions in a book versus how time functions in video work. This is all really exciting, and sequencing and things like that, rhythm. There's a lot of overlapping sort of systems to think through this stuff, and it's all not as separate a skill set as it may appear.
That's right. That's so great. As graphic designers, on that last note, we always think of publication design in a kind of cinematic way, but the world outside doesn't get that.
Right.
Great. Students, I encourage you to ask questions of this incredible cultural producer and the really broad variety of work. But Rush, I was wondering, have you taught before, and do you have an interest in teaching?
I've spoken a couple times, mostly I've spoken at Poster House maybe sometime last year or earlier this year. And then I did a more internal talk with the folks at Google Design. I've considered teaching, and I think teaching is honestly some sort of responsibility. I'm not sure what context that is or what context I will be teaching in, and that's kind of exciting to think through. I think a lot about like radical pedagogy, also kind of noting that all of the ways in which like undergrad maybe didn't help me, didn't serve me at all, or ways it sort of actively hurt me or hurt my practice or my learning or something like that. And I'm thinking about what does education and what does community look like in ways that aren't exclusive and exclusive and ableist and xenophobic by sort of nature. I think larger academia can be that by default, but I also think graphic design has a more specific, more unique problem with sort of like value issues, sort of xenophobia, even like a sort of white supremacist sort of thing, and maybe a blatant embrace of hypercapitalism. Maybe we could call it a blatant embrace, or we could call it like literally like fanning the flame of capitalism, giving capitalism this little sleek, friendly, faux friendly look. So yeah, I think there's a lot we can interrogate about the industry in general.
Okay, Yoonjung Cho has a comment or a question. Thank you for the presentation. I'm personally struggling to bring in a sense of playfulness in my work. How do you initiate giving yourself that room to play when you're designing?
I think it's about giving yourself whatever you need. I think for me, it was about knowing that I needed to work independently and maintain my own independent studio practice that kind of accommodates the space and time and like all the things I sort of need to consider to sort of think through that. Yeah. Sorry, can you say the question again? Let me try and attack. Let me try and.
So it goes like this. Personally, Yu Jung Cho is struggling to bring in a sense of playfulness in their work. Mm-hmm. How do you initiate giving yourself that room to play while you're designing?
Right. I also think another thing is I don't necessarily have a fixed process for a lot of these repeat type of jobs like publication design or something like that. I think I approach every job with a sort of brand new, fresh perspective or something. I like to come to conclusions really organically and not just come to solutions I already maybe have in my head or something like that. I think the playfulness is kind of an innate part of design. It's part of the wayfinding. It's part of the forming language. It's part of identifying the problem or something that feels intangible and kind of making that tangible or legible. I think that act requires play.
Awesome. Yeah. Other questions, students?
I think Ashley Wu has a question.
Oh, go ahead.
Hi. Hi, Rush. It was really great to hear about your work. I am a current adjunct at MICA, actually, and a common collaborator with Poster House. And so I loved seeing your exhibition at MICA, as well as seeing this that you have up on the screen right now, You Won't Bleed Me. And I would love to hear a little bit more about your experience with curating this and collaborating with the designers at Poster House, and also how you kind of blend your experience as this multidisciplinary artist, designer, and curator together. Is there like something specific that you like really love about this collaborative process?
Yeah. From a pragmatic sort of side of things, I think you can just get more done when you're collaborating. But I think, the process of this with Poster House was actually really exciting. They reached out to me and they do kind of an interesting little sort of outside designer cycling system where they have folks sort of recommend other designers to design each like exhibition that they might have or the poster for each exhibition. So I was referred to a designer by an outside designer. And from that point, I got to know Poster House. I did the talk with them and then really sat down with them and was thinking through this poster. And it was largely really collaborative. I was working with Ola Baldic, the design director over at Poster House. And, we spent a couple of meetings sort of talking through the larger sort of exhibition material, some of the archival images, thinking through thinking through conceptually, like how these posters functioned in the larger sort of like socio-economic sort of like background context happening there. And then from there, it became about realizing the sort of image that I wanted or needed to make. And then, sitting down with Riley and really just sort of talking through like how we can devise a system with maybe our hands or something that can get at a struggle over like taking power or something like that, or using the page as a symbol itself. So yeah, I think the process in general was really collaborative and quite exciting. And then from there, I worked with Ola and the folks at Poster House and K-Rock Printing here in the city on the 5-color screen print. And yeah, that was generally the process. The Poster House folks really are an exciting community, and it was a pleasure working with them. I think they're thinking about design in really exciting ways. And yeah, it's been a pleasure.
How did you get to thinking and curating these specific posters? Was there any guidance on their part, or did you have like full say and then you just had to, or they had to go and find the posters?
No, so I didn't curate any of the exhibition at all. My work here was just the poster. Yeah, just this.
Got it.
This slide is for additional context. On the left, there's just installation images, and then on the right, there's the Melvin Van Peebles poster. But yeah, I think they had their own sort of curatorial effort that also seemed very collaborative in general. And I'd love to hear a bit more about that from them, but I'm not really sure, honestly.
Right, thank you. I think the poster itself is beautiful and the entire identity of it, and it works really well.
Thank you so much, yeah.
Any other questions?
I have one more question.
Please, Anna.
So I know that you're on the subject of balancing kind of studio life and building up a freelance kind of image making practice. I know recently you've been returning to the studio after a break, and I'm wondering,
I have been.
Yeah, two questions. One, how you overcome sort of like allowing for space between practices, or sort of the process of like putting something down and then kind of giving it room to breathe and longing for it and then returning to your more like painting practice, and also what you're excited about in the studio right now.
Yeah, great questions. Yeah, I think, yeah. So I think it's a lot about time with balancing all of these things. I'm predominantly working on like client work in a design landscape most days. But while I'm saying that, there are also like certain things are higher priority and certain things can be a slower burn, if that makes sense. Like I think painting is something I need to sit with long term, and that no hard declarations will immediately come from at this point. And that's sort of totally fine. I think it's about being patient and also understanding that this is a longer term generative process. Yeah, like as I say that, I'm also just looking at paintings in progress, which I will show a peek of. But yeah, and then what was the second part of your question, Anna?
I was just wondering if there's anything exciting you in the studio.
Right. Yeah, yeah, there's a couple exciting things. So I'm working with Jerome Harris right now on an exciting brand identity for an arts institution, a Black arts institution in the Midwest. So we're like kind of right in the thick of that. That's really exciting. I'm wrapping up a monograph, an artist debut monograph published by Aperture. It's a really exciting photography monograph. It's due to come out around April or so. Yeah, I'm wrapping that up. I'm feeling really good about sort of the language being proposed in that book and how everything's starting to come together. And besides that, I'm wrapping up a visual identity project with my friend Riley. We are branding a popular, like sort of food and production service or sort of agency out in New York called Yardi. And in that branding, one thing I'll point out that's really exciting me is we are sort of, I think we're thinking through a couple things, like how to, Yardi has a very sort of high-end clientele, and we're thinking about how to read in a way that, how to make Yardi read in a way that hits the check marks that, you know, a contemporary culinary sort of entity in New York needs to check off, but also we're thinking through what does a Caribbean food sort of entity look like visually or graphically, and how can that play out? And so what I'm really excited about is we've been thinking through a lot of like Afro-diasporic writing systems and sort of writing traditions, specifically things like Haitian ground drawings, for example, and Sabidi texts from like Yoruban culture. And also just, yeah, seeing how all of these writing languages sort of like shift or change throughout the diaspora, throughout time and place and where you are. Yeah, and we're kind of marrying some of those Sabidi glyphs or some of that logic and some of these writing systems into the identity. And so, yeah, I'm really excited about that as well. Besides that, I'm just kind of, yeah, taking it slow. I'm thinking through painting a lot more. And I think the big thing is a more comprehensive major rehaul of my website and sort of web presence, and yeah, sharing new case studies with folks. Lastly, I also just wrapped up I did title credits for a new Tierra Whack video called Stand Up. That just came out yesterday. It's very brief title credits, but I'm excited about that as well as an avid Tierra Whack fan. Yeah, thanks, Anna. Any more questions? I know I covered a lot very briefly and very quickly, so let me know if there's anything you'd like me to expand on. Yeah. Also, I just want to add, I think when I was a student, a design student, I was really looking for kind of just precedent of folks that weren't just maybe studying design and then just working a 9-to-5 at some ad agency somewhere. And yeah, maybe precedent of somebody working in an art and design sort of blended hybrid sort of way. And yeah, I just want to say that exists. That's out there. You can do that. And also don't feel like you need to define your practice right away. I think the ambiguity can be a really fruitful space in general.
Rush, if you don't mind, may we ask you for some of your favorites, cultural favorites recently? For example, your favorite writer.
Favorite writer. That's a good question.
Or just what you're reading.
Yeah, I'll say I'm reading Caps Lock right now by Ruben Pater.
Yes.
Another, I think that kind of falls right in line with my talk as well too. Yeah, another book by an author who's thinking a lot about the sort of cultural implications of design. Yeah, he presents these different sort of scenarios, like designer as scribe, designer as insurgent, designer as a capitalist, or something like that. And I think that's really helpful to think through as you all start to, place yourselves within the larger design industry. I think we all really need to be aware about how we're practicing design and in what context. Yeah, because I think by default, a lot of violence and really maybe not helpful, not productive modes of design are the default, or thinking of design and the values that accompany it.
So amazing. Well, it's this has been a really fast hour of really, enlightening exposure to, really impressive work, and lots of thoughtful questions have been brought up that I'm sure that our students are going to carry away and dwell upon.
Yeah, thank you. I'm happy to talk to you all. I hope this conversation was fruitful to you.
Thank you so much for joining us. And students, let's have some farewell greetings for Rush, even if just emoji or in that discursive chat space we all have come to appreciate.
Thank you all. It's been a pleasure.
Thank you very much. It's been a great honor. And with this, I'd like to, close out our visiting hour. And very special thanks also to, I see my colleague and our Vice Provost, Colette Vise-Colors, who has joined us as well. Colette, thank you very much. Colette was instrumental in bringing the New Black Vanguard to MICA, and is also, I'm sure, delighted that you are here as the designer of many things, among which is the beautiful catalog to the exhibition.
Amazing. Yeah, thank you, everyone. It's been such a pleasure.
Okay, bye, everyone.
Bye, y'all.